Hello knitters, Barbara Benson here. I am an independent knitwear designer who also likes to make videos here on my YouTube channel, Watch Barbara Knit. If you'd like to know more about my shenanigans online, make sure to check in the description below the video where you will find links to where you can find my patterns online, how to join the Watch Barbara Knit Facebook group, and how to support me on Patreon. And of course, anything I talk about in this video that I can link to. Today, so a couple videos back, I showed a gauge ruler, and I had quite a few comments of people wanting to know what the gauge ruler was and where they could get one and what brand it was and stuff like that. And I did reply and gave people links, but I thought it would be fun to look at a few gauge rulers so y'all could see a couple different kinds. And I always like to take advantage of the fact that I work in a yarn store. I have access to a lot of different products that I can show y'all and then put back on the shelf. So it's a lot of fun. We've looked at yarn before, but I don't think we've ever looked at gauge rulers. So I am in the yarn store right now. I also thought it would give us a little change of venue, so it would look different. So we're gonna look at some gauge rulers, and I explain how to measure and gauge and what these different rulers do. There are all different kinds of gauge measures, and I just wanted to show you a few that I really like and that we have at the store, taking advantage of the fact that I'm at a store. So here are a few of them. Now, typically your gauge is given over 2 or over 4 inches. So you'll see a 2-inch gauge most frequently, which is what these are, and also this one. This is part of a larger, this is actually a sock ruler, where what it is it's specifically designed so that you slide this into a sock and the toe fits so you can measure how far up you need to go before you start turning your heel. But there's other things in this particular tool. You have a gauge area, you've got needles, but only sock size needles, and it also has instructions on how to do a stretchy bind off if you're doing toe up, or Kitchener if you're doing cuff down. And then we also have metric measurements, and then here's our 4-inch just as a ruler, but this is the hole for your 2-inch. So you have ones that are just holes like this, and they're solid. So it really isolates out what you're measuring. And then you would do this to measure your stitch gauge and then turn it this way to measure your row gauge. Similar, this is one that is designed like a keychain. This is an awesome Katrinkles. We love Katrinkles. And you can put one of these like on every project bag. And again, you have a 2-inch section here, and you can line it up to measure your stitch count this way and then move it to get your row count this way. This is another, this instead of wood is plastic. This is from Skacel. It's the people who make Addy. And again, you have your 2-inch or 50 millimeter this way, between tooth is 2 inches. This way, gonna get your row gauge. Now this is transparent. The other ones I've shown you were solid. I really like transparent ones because it makes it so you can see the stitches through and you can line things up better. I also like that this one has the 2-inch measurement in this direction and this direction. So instead of having to reposition to measure stitch and row gauge, you can just put it in one spot. And the way you're going to count, so first thing you got to do is pick out which stitch what row. So here, see how this is the center of this stitch. You see that I'm pointing to? So we're going to line that up in the very corner, and then we're going to make sure this straight line is running along the bottom of all those stitches. And then you count. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You see, I'm going from center of stitch to center of stitch. What that is telling me that this is 10 stitches for 2 inches. That's 5 stitches per inch. Or if your gauge is stated in 4 inches, that'd be 20 stitches in 4 inches. Now, for the vertical, our rows, now see, I'm going to scooch it up a little so I'm right on this one. So we've got 1, make sure I'm lined up with my column. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we have 14 rows. So we have 10 stitches and 14 rows, which would be 20 stitches and 28 rows in 4 inches. And that is how you count your gauge. You're trying to determine stitches per inch. Now, the next step up, and the reason why I'm making this video, I've showed y'all this one before, and a lot of people in the comments were interested in it. And I was wanting to show it again. You can get these at the store, or you can go to Acreworks. That is the brand name. It's Acreworks Swatch Gauge. It comes mounted onto this in a little plastic doohickey. I will link to their website, but also to the A Good Yarn website. This is specifically one that has been branded for A Good Yarn. That's the store I work at. And this one is great because it actually is the full 4 inches on both the vertical and the horizontal axis. It is semi-transparent, so you can still see these stitches below here, but as you can see, it's got a little less clarity, and that makes it easier to see along here. And it also has these. See these little teeth right here? And one of my coworkers calls them the teeth of truth, because what happens is when you line it up, right? And you push down a little bit, those teeth lock in and you can't stretch and you can't move, and it kind of locks you in and you can't finagle it to mean what you want to. So again, you just do the same thing. You look down and you count 1, 2, 3, you just across, and then you can count vertically in a column. Now I would need to line this up with a column so you can count, and it's great for that. The other thing that is great for that is you really can see how big of a swatch you should be making, okay? This is to measure 4 inches by 4 inches. You want to be able to do that measurement with no interference from your edge stitches. So whatever they say is supposed to go here, in this case, it would be, what did we determine, 20 stitches? You need at least 5 stitches on this side and 5 stitches on this side. So to knit your gauge swatch, you would need to cast on 30. Now, if you're knitting it in the round, which I believe is how this one is constructed, you would actually need to cast on 60 or do one of the fancy things where you strand the yarn across the back, but that is a whole nother video. So your swatch needs to be of a sufficient size that you can measure your full 4 inches in both directions without interference from your edge stitches. And that's the only way you're going to get an accurate measurement. If you're one of those people who say my gauges lie, there's a very high probability that you're not making your gauge swatch big enough, or you haven't blocked your gauge swatch, or you knit it flat when it was a pattern in the round, or you knit it in the round when I mean, there's many reasons why gauge swatches can be less than accurate. But so this is the Acreworks one, and then I also wanted to show y'all. So this is the Acreworks kit, and I think I might have shown y'all this. I don't know. So it has this really cool the gauge on it, the gauge ruler, but it also has so you can check your needle size, which here's a red version of the Skacel one. This also has that. That's frequently found. But what this is this lifts off, and inside of it, you've got, these are magnets. Look, so they're these high power magnets here, and this is a tape measure. And these magnets, so you can put your magnetic, your steel stitch notions and things. So those are stuck. Here are some yarn needles, and here is a little pair of scissors, and you can hear, here, I mean, if I put it like this, it's still going to stay because it's a high power magnet. And there are a couple little extra pouches there, holes, what do you want to call those? I don't know. And you could put other things as long as they're magnetic, and they're going to stay in there because it's magnetic. You can see they moved. And then when you put this on top, they're extra bonus covered up, and they're not going to come out. So this is like the extra luxury deluxe version of a gauge kind of setup. It's like the whole shebang, which is really cool. And if you want something that'd be a really awesome gift for a knitter, this is a fun thing. Again, this is from Acreworks. They have not paid me in any way, shape, or form. They do not know I exist. It's a great product, and I wanted to show it to y'all. But that is how you measure your gauge. What you don't do is, if your pattern says it's 20 stitches by, what did we have? 28 rows or whatever. I can't remember the math already. You don't cast on 20 stitches and knit the number of rows and then try to see if you can stretch it to be 4 inches. You don't cast on just that number and measure it, because that is not what they mean. You want to count your stitches per inch and see if you are getting an accurate gauge. It's not these 20 stitches need to be 4 inches. It's when I have 4 inches, how many stitches are in there. Now, if you're off, okay? If you're off, and let's say it said 20 stitches equals 4 inches, right? Let's focus on this, come on. 20 stitches equals 4 inches. But then when you actually knit your swatch and block it and measure it, when you measure 14, you only have 18 stitches in the 4 inches. What that means is that your stitches are too big, okay? Because you're supposed to get 20 into that space, but you're only getting 18. So if the number of stitches is lower than the number you're supposed to get, then you need to go down a needle size. If you got 24 stitches in 4 inches, your stitches are too small, okay? You're getting too many stitches in the 4 inches. So if your number is higher, you need to go up in needle size. You need to make those stitches bigger. So if this number is lower than this number, you need to go down, lower, down. If this number is higher than that number, you need to go up. If it's higher, you need to go up a needle size. This is the first time I've ever written for y'all. I'm sorry about my handwriting. I hope this makes sense. This is something that's really hard to wrap your brain around, but I hope that helps a little bit with gauge. If you had any questions about gauge, I hope this maybe helped a little bit. And you know a little bit more about how to use gauge rulers. And the ones I showed you were just an incredibly small example of the range of gauge rulers. There are all different kinds. There are ones that are completely plastic that have like magnifying glasses in them. It's really cool, and there's so many different ones that you can get, but those are a few. If nothing else, I hope it encourages you to make an actual gauge swatch and measure your gauge so that you know what your gauge is. I'm really big into that. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, click that like button, and if you would like to be notified whenever I upload a new video, please subscribe to my channel and select notifications. Thank you so much.